This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. The following program is rated PG-13 and contains language and material that may be offensive to some audiences. All right. Well, with us today in the studio is the one and only April. April, you are a wordsmith. You are a songstress. You are an entertainer. You are an artist. You are a Renaissance woman. I've used that word a few times before, kind of jokingly, but I really think that you're the real deal.
Okay.
I want to know all about you. Where do you even want to start?
Where do I want to start?
I didn't give the full name, by the way. April Lee Fields. If you look her up on YouTube, on social media, is that where they'll find you?
Yeah, they can find me. I've got a website, www.aprilleefields.com.
Perfect.
Or any social media handles, April Lee Fields. So
Outstanding.
yeah.
We can start anywhere you want.
Right. Well, I imagine we're mostly talking about the kind of artist journey. So I traveled for a lot, right? Before I kind of would say that I became a full-time artist. I am originally from England, in Cornwall, down in the south, with all the countryside and kind of little fairyland, pixie land.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
I was raised by folklore and fairies. You met my mum the other day.
Yes, I did.
And she is like a little pixie herself. So
I was fascinated by all that because I believe in this stuff.
yeah.
I do. I really, truly do. And I don't care what people think. I believe in fairies and pixies. I believe in Santa Claus still.
Yeah. I think a lot of people used to believe in things that had more kind of spirit in it, and I think we've just disconnect from that. So I don't think that we should even have to be like, I believe in, like it used to be just like just kind of a reality of kind of the spirits and energy and things that would guide us, you know. So.
100%. I believe that was stolen from us. It's not just hasn't happened. It's in the process of happening all the time.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
We've lost a lot of magic in our lives.
Yeah, but we can keep some of it alive. And there's different types of magic now these days. But
Yeah, that's true.
You know. So I was raised on the magic. I was raised by little fairy mama. But I also had this kind of like a contrasting side, which is like the father side. So my mum is like super kind of white, blue eyes, blonde hair, English, and then she married my father, who's the complete opposite, and he's this big kind of African American John Coffey looking person, ex-marine, bodybuilder, all that. So I tell you this because it just meant that when I was probably about 12 years old, we moved over to Florida here.
Okay.
So my dad's from, so I feel like that has a big part to do with everything for me, my whole life, my upbringing, my art. Everything is this kind of dynamic, contrasting nature of the mother and the father and the light and the dark and the English and the kind of Southern gospel.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I moved here when I was 12. I got to enjoy all that kind of contrasted life on my dad's side of the family. And
Here being Sebring?
Yeah, here in Sebring. And yeah, they were really like a gospel family, like going to the churches all the time, and it was just so it was quite amazing. It was terrifying actually, and so alienating from everything that I had known before. Like I remember crying about not seeing moss anymore. I was like 12 years old. Like I miss the green stuff on the rocks. My mum's like, moss. Yeah, and stone buildings, and yeah, like it was the ruins of King Arthur's castle. Was
I
just,
can't
like,
imagine.
Across the road from us, and then we came to Florida, Sebring. So lots and lots of differences. But yeah, I think that had a lot to do with my nature and my kind of ability or want or desire to be in different places and see different things and try to understand things wholly from different sides all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was younger, I was quite unbalanced with these different sides. But as I've got older, I've just tried to tried to find the balance, and I think we all looking for a bit of balance, but
Were you in tune with your gifted side at an early age? When did you know that you had? When did you know you had something special?
that's sweet. I used to sing when I was a kid, right? When I was a little kid, I got super into the Spice Girls,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And that still resonates with me on this day. See my leopard prints, and Mel B was probably one of my first personal heroes.
Uh
You
huh.
know, I could relate a lot to her. She was brown skin and English, and I just, I just saw her as a hero. I loved her, and I also there was a lot of like bullying when I was in Cornwall. You know, we were the only family of color. Like children had never even, you know, they'd come and touch my skin and make,
Really?
yeah. So it made a huge difference in my friend group. All the girls were kind of making these like Spice Girl bands, and they all wanted me to be Mel B. And so I just music that you know I really understood the importance of how it can change your life and your social environments as well at a very young age, I think. And so we used to do all these Spice Girl stuff and go to the competitions and like trust it, move it, groove it, prove it.
Ah.
You know, like I know all the words. And so I did that. But then I would say when I moved over here, I really lost all of that, and I didn't sing. I didn't do anything really creative. I just was painfully shy for a very long time. So I was writing, and I always was writing ever since I think 11 years old. I had my first journal.
Hmm.
So I kind of stopped the singing at kind of like at, 11, 12, and then just went fully into journaling. And one of the only things that I have as my own property in England at this point is a giant, massive leather-bound suitcase full to the brim of journals and poetry books. And
Fantastic.
yeah, but all of that came because I think I went very internal as like a teenager, like so many people do,
Hmm.
you know. And I wouldn't speak. I could never. I used to have like this giant lump in my throat, and I wasn't able to communicate with people. And I just wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote.
It's interesting to me
Mm.
that so many artists are actually very introverted and shy, but they have to overcome that because the very nature of what they do forces them to be in the public eye.
Yeah.
And I don't know that people understand how uncomfortable it is for so many artists to have to toe that line. It's a hard line.
Yeah. I just had that conversation recently. I kind of was talking about a show where there was, I kind of just wished like a few family members or something would have been there. And I was like, do you guys know how hard it is actually to get up on the stage? And it's yeah, it's unnerving. It's unraveling. And
Hmm.
I think people think because you just do it, then it's something that you enjoy or you're. But I mean, there's plenty of people outside of stage work that do jobs that they don't necessarily enjoy, but they feel compelled to do.
Exactly. And that's a calling.
Yeah,
And that's what you have, I believe.
yeah.
I believe that's what you have. And you travel all over the world doing this.
Yeah, I've traveled a lot. I mean, I'm 37 now. I kind of left home when I was about 15, and I kind of ran away and was in all kinds of strife and juvenile detention centres
Hmm.
and probation
Hmm.
and house arrest, and nothing ever serious. I just was very troubled. I was quite a troubled teenager, I would say, and we had a lot of violence in our family and stuff, and so I was like troubled and angry, and I was
Hmm.
very like in a gothic stage in rock and roll, and I didn't have any friends. So when I started traveling, it really, to be honest, it was more of a form of escapism. It wasn't like, obviously I wanted to see the world, but it was more like I need to get out of
Yes.
here, you know. I started going back to England when I was 18, and I started enjoying the summers there and
Hmm.
just kind of reconnecting with my family and that kind of nice fairy lifestyle. And so that was nice. And then I started exploring a little bit further. I went to Brazil when I think it's 2012 or something. but it was the first trip that I had ever done outside of the UK or America. So, and since then, I mean, I lived in Brazil, I went to Indonesia, Thailand, Australia, Cambodia. Like I've just kind of lived and traveled all over for about 15 years.
You've been able to sustain that with your art, and you've been able to make enough money to live the starving artist life.
Yeah, I would say I for a very long time, like I only started, so I was traveling, and it was probably when I was in Australia. I went to Australia when I was about 25, and I was quite a late bloomer, I think, as far as like creatively, because I think I just I stopped and I never shared anything with anyone, any writing, any
Hmm.
nothing. And in my mid 20s, I went to a festival for the first time ever, and I realized what a magical grown up playground it was, and people just just grown ups just playing
Yeah.
music and interacting with each other and dancing and having fun. And whether it's this type of way or this type of way, people are just they're just having a nice time and having fun. And it really begged the question for me, like, what can I bring to contribute to this? Like, what can I do? I would I see these festivals of these women, just they decided that they want to dress up like the four elements, earth, wind, and fire, and they're walking around with their music, and they're just like, it was a huge thing to me that this is what people want to contribute, and they're just choosing any wacky, weird, strange thing
Yeah.
that they want to do. And it
Yeah.
it gave me a sense of permission that I don't think that I
Mm.
had ever had before. And so I just began this little mission, and it was maybe it's 7, 8, 9 years ago now, but it all started off at festivals and just getting my little book of poetry. And I decided that I was, I would happen to be working in a tea house at the time in the mountains in Australia, and just living in my van by myself by the river. And I was like, I'm going to go to this next festival, and I'm going to incorporate like get my afro and put bones all in me, just like an extended version of myself. And I'm going to have a tea party, and I'm going to go up to people and ask them if I can recite them some poems and offer them like tea. So I did this thing for just one time at one festival, but it was like a birthing for me.
Yeah.
It was like I just had this like amplified version of myself outfit going on, and did this little tea party, and I called it Poety. And yeah, it just made me feel really good in the world. But to answer your question, so I I would say probably for most of the year I would just work
Hmm.
waitressing, 2 or 3 jobs, bartending, waitressing, cleaning jobs, and maybe just so that a couple months of the year I could travel, and maybe for a small amount of that time I would be an artist. And it's like I needed
Mm.
to be as far away from everyone and anything so that I could have the freedom to be that person
Yeah.
almost.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. Do you see yourself almost as separate from the April that is sitting across from you now? Is this the personal April or the performer April? Are they the same? Or are they integrated, or are they two separate things?
I'd like to say that they're separate, and I'm actually trying to make them a little bit more separate, but I actually just think that the performer April is the personal April, and I'd like to have a little bit more separation. Um, yeah, I wrote this book, and I did this kind of book journey for a while, and the book is it's a very personal tale. I spent some I spent some time going to these festivals and doing the poetry thing, and that was great. And then I went down to New Zealand, and I thought I was just going to continue on with this, poetry journey. And something just came out of me. I ended up going to stay with a friend's mum who lived in the middle of nowhere in North Taranaki, beneath like a snow-capped mountain, and
Wow.
really beautiful. This older ginger lady, and she used to have wolves, and there's like wolf spirit all in her house, and bones and teeth, and I was like
Wow.
second I have some oldie witchy ladies that come in and out of my life, you
Uh-huh.
know, and so I kind of just said to her, I said, Heather, I really love this place. You know, I was supposed to just spend a couple of days. And she said, oh, I said, do you mind if I stay? I think I'm going to write a book. And I've just been traveling for like a year in Australia. And I knew that I kind of wanted, that's kind of what the goal was. And I had kind of made this pact, like kind of spirit pact. I said, I want to go traveling. I'm going to go for 1 year in Australia. I'm going to write about everything that happens in that 1 year, like very honest account of
Mm-hmm.
life, love, death, friendship, tragedy, exploration, growth. And that year happened to be the year that I was really feeling that like creative person inside myself, like wake up, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote the book, and all the creative person in me was waking up, and like you know, for 7 years, was it 7 for 4 years? Sorry, it was like a 7 year experience of writing the book, and because I self published it, and then I did performances with this book for a couple of years, and the, to answer your question, it became very exhausting.
Yeah.
It became very
Oh, yeah.
exhausting. It was like me basically reading my diary to a bunch of people. We'd sometimes put music, would always put music behind it, and they would be like these long storytelling things, and I would just use myself as an example in a hopefully non-egotistical way, but like the book is called A Version of You.
Mm.
So it's just like hopefully stories that everyone can relate to in some kind of different way, stories about love and death and all this. And so I'd read it, and I just got really exhausted, and then I kind of hightailed out of America a few years ago and just had to have a bit of a break. And I'm coming back now, and I'm just doing cover songs,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm doing that because it feels nice to lean into other people's
Sure.
work. But I'm also I feel quite like I do want to make more of a stage persona to
Mm-hmm.
answer your question, and
Gotcha.
not have it like people are just coming into my heart so easily.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, maybe that's just part of who I am anyway. So.
I gotcha. Do you also have, you're a songsmith, you're a poet. Do
Mm.
you also write lyrics, and do you have original songs, or have you not put music to them yet?
So I have in the past, I would say that any musical things that I created kind of really just depended on who I was around and what I was doing. And I have created some original things, and some of it's been poetry, like beat
Mm-hmm.
poetry kind of style of things with like excerpts from my book, and some of it has been like so, you know, I worked with a girl that made these weird, crazy, weird, grungy beats once, and so we did this, you know, thing. And then I worked with this guy called Craig Vegas, and he used to play electric guitar, and me and this other girls would just improv, kind of rap and stuff
Yeah.
around it. And so I've done lots of different projects and a lot of kind of original stuff, but they're all so different from each
Mm-hmm.
other.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's. I'm a little bit envious of you for that, because when I go out, people expect to hear the Beatles, they expect to hear the Eagles, they
Yeah.
expect to hear what I do,
Yeah.
and I don't even like to do originals. I've got tons of originals, and once in a while somebody will ask, and I'll do one.
Hmm.
But it's cool that you are free in your ability to perform whatever it is that's on your heart or your mind at any given time. That's incredibly cool. Well done.
Thank you. I would say I don't have I don't have the ability to necessarily do like I don't have backing tracks of what these originals that I've done, so I can't sing them live, and I don't, you know, the artists are in different places all
Mm-hmm.
around in different countries. So I think that's why I have really kind of leaned more into doing these cover songs and stuff because it does give me more like I don't have to wait for. I've done lots of different things, but with people all over, and yeah, it's just nice to be able to be like, this is what I want to do,
Yeah,
and you know,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. What are some things, how do I say this? What are some things that Americans don't get about British stereotypes or whatever? And what are some things that British kind of like or don't like about Americans? I'm
It's a
curious.
hard one. Well, I can say I was doing dishes at Audrey's the other day, and she did not like that I left a small residue of dishwashing detergent on the dishes. And apparently, that's a very British thing that British people always leave little bits of uh, dishwashing detergent
Really?
on the clean dishes. Yeah.
I've never ever heard of
Yeah.
such a thing. So what's the reasoning behind
No
that?
idea. I just remember growing up as well. When I was taught to do the dishes, we washed the dishes and then we would just put them to dry and like imagine that all the suds would come off rather than rinsing them. I think it originates from the old schoolness of British and just having one sink.
Okay.
And I think it's quite American to have two
All
sinks,
right.
two double sinks. So
Wow. I never would have guessed that one.
that's just one one small thing. Um, I don't know, some things that I think the cultures are just very different. The humor's different, the
Mm-hmm.
sarcasm's different, the
Mm-hmm.
food is the weather's very different. It's a little bit like night and day, I would say, American people and British
Yeah.
people. There's there's lots of things that are
Are,
different.
are y'all still pissed at us for beating you up in the revolution?
I think the English people are.
Are they really? Do you think so still a little bit, maybe?
I think so.
Oh well. Sorry. King George he should have known to leave well enough alone, but
Should
it's
have.
okay.
The British people are just generally a little bit cranky, so
You know what?
they can be.
Are they cranky or are they just very proper and it appears to be
Quite
cranky?
proper. It's proper. It's reserved, I would say. I would say Americans can be a lot more just not common with you, but what's the word? Just like informal
Yes.
with you. And I would say that typically a British person will be quite formal with you.
Hmm.
So I think when I talk, I'm quite formal when I'm speaking to people, but also I also have my like dirty rat bag side.
Just the the way British and I guess English is England, British is England, Wales, Ireland, all of that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Am I getting that right? Just the dialect of the British is
Yeah.
so delightful and so serious.
Yeah.
Speaking a normal, regular, everyday sentence
Yeah.
sounds so cool.
Yeah.
It's almost intimidating.
I would say I never particularly liked living in America, if
Hmm.
I'm honest. But when I decided to be a storyteller, when I finished my book, I'd had this whole journey kind of living the White Witch and the Woman's Mountain, Granny Breathweaver, and the activation of voice. And I just had this whole. I decided that I wanted to be a storyteller,
Yes.
and my mum's little bit of a storyteller, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my book, and I was having like quite strange messages or downloads or divine guidance that I had to do reading with this book, and I didn't necessarily want to read the book.
Yeah.
But I just had some feelings that I had to do that, and so I can't even remember where I was going with this now. What was your question?
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. Well, we kind of shifted around, but it was about we were talking about some misconceptions the British might have about Americans, the ones that Americans might have about the British. Then we got talking about how great the dialect is and how intimidating it can be. And then we were talking about you're not particularly enamored with living in America compared to other places.
Yeah. But I decided that here was a great place to do it because, to be honest, I could literally just be reading instructions on a box of IKEA furniture and people would be at least mildly interested.
Well, I mean, it's true. It's very
Yeah.
true. You have that going for you immediately. You have that
Immediately. So I'm like,
voice.
it doesn't even matter if the writing's good or not.
It was fantastic, really. But I know that the writing is good because you could not have done what you've done as well as you've done it and be successful in places all over the map without being good at it. And I've only heard a tiny little bit of you,
Mm.
and I loved what I heard. So I'm looking forward to hearing you more. I know you're playing at Monserc. By the time people see this,
Yeah,
you'll be gone already.
it's okay.
But you'll be back.
I'll be back at some point. I mean, it's a home base for me here.
Does your mom stay here year round? Okay.
My mum lives here year round, so I mean, it has been about 3 years since I came back last,
Hmm.
but I'd like to think that maybe I'll be able to come over kind of once a year or something, because it is a home base and it is important to spend the time with the friends and the family. And yeah, I'm doing a show at Monster tonight, but I'm just doing some cover songs. I haven't done the poetry stuff in like 2 years. I
Yeah.
felt like I needed just to like put that down and have a break with it, but.
Hmm.
I was looking at some of it today because I wanted to show you the book actually.
Well, I would love to see it.
I bought a copy to show you. I felt like we'd talk a little bit more about the journey. So,
Oh wow,
this
that
is
is a
the-
book.
yeah,
That's a real book.
right. So this
Wow.
is the first thing that I ever published to anyone. And I also learned to self-publish it. So I wrote it, I edited it. I had a lovely girl called Rosanna come up and she believed in my work so much that she kind of lived with me for a few months and helped me with the final edit. But other than that, I didn't have any professional help from anyone whatsoever. And I pulled that out and just got it all done. And it goes in through so many different levels of, there's the beginning of the book where it's kind of fun and silly and you're traveling in Asia, and then there's some like very historic parts of it where we're going through the genocide museums and the killing fields and what all that kind of means. And then there's parts of going to Australia, feeling creativity, enlivening, and there's other also parts about relationships and spiritual. There's a lot in there. So I worked solid on that book for about 4 years. I did performances with it. We put music behind it. We did readings. And I felt like it was like the best thing. And I still feel like it's probably the best thing that I've ever kind of created with my life. But it is a massive book and it's very densely written, I think.
I gotta
Yeah.
look at that. That is the real deal,
It's
right
550 pages.
there. 150 pages. You could have done this like in several editions.
Well, that's what I just worked on recently. So, most recently, when I finished that book, I put together a book of poetry.
Oh wow! Look at you go! Wow!
I put together a book of poetry called Wildflower, and when I was here last, I toured with a band called the Swamp Rats, and they're like a bluegrass band, and I would read from my book and they would do kind of like bluegrass songs, bluegrass music behind it. So
Yes.
we did this crazy tour all across the United States with that Wildflower book.
Wow.
And then after that, I decided to move to New Orleans, and I felt like I'd always kind of traveled and been everywhere, but I'd never like been in a place long enough to build up a following or anything. I was just sort of like dot dot here, going everywhere, and I wanted to be somewhere, and I decided America was it, and so I was like, New Orleans, I'm gonna,
That feels like a good fit.
yeah. And then the bloody pandemic happened. So I still went to New Orleans and lived there for like a year and a half, but it wasn't open in the same way, and everything was obviously completely closed down. And whenever I could, I worked with a friend, Twigman, and I think you met him the other night at the house, and he was just a bass player, and we kind of created this act where he would just do some simple bass, and would do the songs, and we would have some house shows, and we slowly started incorporating all kinds of stuff, fire twirling, and people would
Oh
be
my
cooking.
word.
People would be cooking back there, deep fried turkey, and like it would. We did a few really amazing backyard gigs, and then I had to leave. But while I was living in New Orleans, I worked on this project here. So this is a 10-book project, but it is basically just a version of you. I condensed into 10 booklets. So you're gonna have a little look at these booklets there, because there's kind of a theme of every. There's loads of themes in the book, so I kind of condensed it down into 10 small themes, and I put QR codes in the book. So
Brilliant.
you can go through here, you can click this QR code here, you can scan it, and it takes you right to the audiobook that I also recorded and narrated, a 23-hour audiobook. That's 23-hour audiobook. Oasis, 26th of December 2014. After having spent a restless night swaying above a churning
Brilliant.
sea of flatulence,
What?
that was removed ourselves from Nimbin's homeless stage.
What?
So that was probably
You
not
had
a
me at
great
flatulence.
and then anyway, I put on the back of every one also is a QR code of an original song that I did, or a beat poetry thing or something. So like this one's a lovely, beautiful poem that kind of coincides. I tried to pick the songs that were already recorded, and photos that I've like done some modeling for some friends, and just try to make them have a theme, like so the song pairs with the text. And so yeah, I just worked on that for about a year. These
Incredible.
little booklets that are just small size little
Wow.
booklets, and yeah.
You are an impressive human being.
Thank you, Harry.
Holy moly.
I kind of gave up on all of this though, because I don't think anyone really reads in that same capacity, or I don't know, maybe I'm just not networked in with the right people, but it has been quite a lonely journey, I would say.
I get that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not the product. It's the process of getting something inside of you that has to come out in a tangible way.
Yeah.
And that's the gift.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a gift for yourself that you give to yourself. And that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. But I know that people have enjoyed this along the way with you.
I think people really have, and having, I don't know, I just felt like really important to bring an audio sense to literature, to do readings, to have, it's like the sacred art of storytelling. And, I spent this time with this woman in the mountains for 4 months it's kind of the end of the book. And she was an incredible storyteller, and we lived in the mountains with no electricity and just rainwater, and I would sit there every night and just listen to her and her tales of everything that she was doing in life. And I wouldn't even say that I don't even think she knew much about my life, because I was just in this very listening chapter, but it just really ignited how important storytelling is, and how much the more that we step into technology, the harder it is for people to even keep 1 minute of attention onto someone to listen to a full story, and but how calming and lovely it is when you actually really drop in to the art of story.
Here I am on a podcast saying technology is ruining us. I mean, that's really a dichotomy.
It's not. It doesn't ruin. It's got to be balanced. There's so many amazing things that technology is offering and bringing for us, but it also is detracting some things
Oh, yeah.
in certain ways. And I think we just got to find the balance somewhere. Like I'm using the technology with the QR codes and the
Sure.
audio and stuff
Sure.
there, just trying to, make it a little bit more accessible to people. And that's my kind of attempt at trying to make kind of sometimes almost Shakespearean literature a bit more digestible for people. So
These are worth getting just for their art value. The portraits are stunning. The artwork.
thank you.
Did you do the artwork?
No, there is a young girl that I work with that helps me with all of my things. I had a lady. That's a separate one. I can't even remember.
These are really beautiful books.
Thank you.
And they're very well done. They feel good in your hand, and the covers and the paper, it just feels good. These are nice books. Really, really, really nice books.
I had yeah, there's a lady, her name is Anna Myers.
Anna Myers.
She designed the ten books for me. And a lot of those photos were from a photographer called Corrine, and she had taken some photos of me in Australia. So it's just kind of like putting all these art things together. I had the concept about what I wanted. I wanted them to kind of look, kind of regal but floral, and
Oh, yeah.
this vintage kind of look. And so I had a lot of the ideas, and she put them together for me. But
You nailed it.
it's a small team. It literally is me and, this girl, Anna, that works. And I was lucky enough to have Rosanna help me to edit that massive, massive book. But yeah, I'd like to, I think when I continue, because I am continuing, and I have another book this is just a manuscript of
Wow.
a book that I've been working on for the last year. So it's going to be called The Great Landmines of Our Times, and it kind of is all about living in New Orleans during COVID and stuff like that. So, but I'm not. It's been sitting pretty much done now for a year, and I just don't. I think I'm going to approach it. I am going to approach it differently. I'm looking for a publishing company. I'm looking for a literary agent. I'm looking for some kind of team that will see me as a beneficial person to have on their team. So it's less workload, and people,
Yes.
and my books can get out there a bit further, because when you self-publish, you just hit a wall. It's your immediate family
Absolutely.
and friends, and
So
that's
these are not available on Amazon or anything?
They are
available?
available on Amazon. You can
Okay.
go onto my website, www.aprilleefields.com, and there's a subsection called books, and you can buy all of the books online there. But they're also all available on Amazon as well. But it's easier to find them all together on on the website.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. Do you have a poem or short story or anything like that you would just be able to rattle off and share with us?
I'd like to read you a little poem from
I would love that.
from the new one. I was thinking to read something from a version of you, but it feels so old. I feel like I want to step away from that. So I am really starting to kind of, I really didn't know any writers before this. So I would say I have had a bit of a quiet year, but I've also met a few fellow writers and authors and stuff. So I actually sent this manuscript out to a fellow author called Sam, and he went over it for me and said that this was one of his favorite poems. So I'd love to read it.
I would love that.
It's a bit of a longer poem, like the story.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so it's called Concrete Breadcrumbs. And it's just kind of about being in New Orleans and walking around and with my old bass player, Twigman.
I love it. Twigman. That's a great name.
I know. All right. Concrete Breadcrumbs. We stroll along the riverside, side by side, full of nods and silences, still frames fragmented between slender fingertips. And like a Polaroid picture, I slide into the moment, capturing but a small token of this soft and silver beauty. The Mississippi tide rushes up quite hungrily, gulping in shards of the shore, drenched roots entangled as they sway like an earthy pool, a dark cluster of ponytail that could belong to either me or you. The shore is empty and unloved, just like the rush of a first touch the morning after love has snuck on out the back door. Nevermore. We climb inside cement rectangles, discovering new angles of ourselves. Stone octagons bring on transformations. Broken bridges offer shelter, forgetting themselves if only for a little while. Until I eventually climb out, like a freshly figured out Rubik's Cube, for each wave is new. Grey waves, grey day, grey sky inside, and if the sun were but a flower of fragmented colour, then surely it would be off-white. Above the grass-stained horizon sits a perfectly quaint blue-stained castle, swaying softly in the breeze, all wrapped up in a picket white fence dream made up of 1,000 sweltering Arabian nights and bound by being not quite what it seems. The scene floats off across the Mississippi like a forgotten fairy tale, and I imagine myself its queen. What would you do if you were me? I wonder, quietly, to no one and to anyone who will hear me, to the castle still floating, to the sun still grey, to the Mississippi, to the levee, to the grass still green, to the water still rising, to my own perfect destiny still unfolding, to my own inner queen. A set of swings sways gently, like the soft song of an old soul. I throw my shoes to the ground, lay my head back and smile whilst he pushes me forward in more ways than one, straight towards the silver tongue of a restless river. A soft blush of grass brushes up against my tickled toes. Laughter oxygenates my brain, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I swing it all away. Only the wind carries me now. Slender fingers wrap around rope. My freshly painted nails, they too are grey. And all except for the rouge that is cast upon my face, I have no makeup on today. Today I am queen of my disenchantment, a slave to the circumstance, wonder of the world, peasant of the levee, and potential ruler of all that could ever be. I am bound by a consequence, governed by a simple conscience, that cool voice determining who I am. Yes, me. We walk among the ruins of some older time. Stories broken down, refined to dust. I listen to the hush of history, to what once was or will potentially ever be. Graffiti and rubble, torment and trouble. Oh, what tales these walls would speak if they were not but brutally boarded up. Closed lips, mouths shut, sewn and sealed, rusted nails, painted numbers leak from derelict doors, a swampy death toll revealed. It grips me on this silver afternoon, tries to trip me up on rubbish, scattered, bleeding upon the ground. Musty murals mimic life. Life mimics intangible dreams. Dreams chop and change, crumble, cut and paste, and much like the castle drift into not what they seem, and upon a concrete breadcrumb trail, I make my way home. Back to my new life in New Orleans, floating, feeling, somehow knowing that we are all but broken fragments cast from a movie scene, capturing all the while but a small golden token of this soft and silver beauty.
That's remarkable.
So that's going to be from my new book, The Great Landmines of Our Times, whenever it comes out.
I love it.
Thank you.
Can you go back to it? There's a line about your perfect destiny. And I was trying to remember it, but you had so much
There's a lot.
word picture-age going on. Word picture-age? Is that a...
Word picture.
You had so much going on, it was hard for me to remember that line, but that line's really hit me. I'd like to hear it again.
Concrete breadcrumbs. Where it says the scene floats across the Mississippi.
It was about a perfect destiny.
My own perfect. Okay, yeah. What would you do if you were me? I wonder quietly, to no one and to anyone who will hear me, to the castle still floating, to the sun still grey, to the Mississippi, to the levee, to the grass still green, to the water still rising, to my own perfect destiny unfolding, to my own inner queen.
My own perfect destiny unfolding.
Yeah.
That is, that's remarkable. It's taken me 57 years to understand that at any given time, I am exactly where I need to be in time and space.
Yeah.
For a very specific reason.
Yeah.
Even if I can't possibly see or understand what it looks like or what it means. And the peace that comes along with that is remarkable.
Yeah.
It's magic.
I think that's a piece that I've only just lately kind of incorporated. I think I was feeling it a lot here, and you do a little bit of time traveling when you're kind of going back and writing into these things. But it was that recognizing that was that moment of feeling that for me, that it was my journey and my perfect moment to be, stepping into a full version of myself.
Yeah. Beautiful, poignant, lovely, delightful.
Thank you.
I wish everybody could read your books.
Maybe one day they will. I'm hoping that one day they will. I am.
I have a notion I'm going to be on Amazon tonight ordering some books.
Might have a couple ones that I brought here for you.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Well, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for being here. This was really special.
It's my pleasure.
I've had you here almost. You got here at 2:00. I mean, I've had you here almost an hour, and it has flown by like that.
Yeah.
And I know there's so much more going on, and there's so many things we could talk about.
And I didn't know what we were going to do today. I was like, should I prepare a song? Should I do this? And basically, we did something completely different, and that was perfect. And
exactly what it needed to be. And here we are in the perfect space and time and perfect place in time and space again.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping you'll be back before 3 years is up this time.
Yeah, I think I'll try to come back next year. This was a really nice time of year. Usually it's not so hot and swampy in the summer. I love it, but sometimes it's too much. So
I'm trying to remember the first time I met you, and I have a feeling it was back when Audrey and Robin and Bug and Mary, they were all over on Emerson.
Yeah.
That was it. You were friends with them way back then.
I was friends with them way back then. So Mary, in the beautiful way that she does, she kind of, I was a wayward teenager and I didn't have a lot to do with my family at certain points. And, Mary really kind of took me in and raised me up a lot when I was a teenager. So I spent a lot of time over there. Audrey's 2 years older than I am or was at the time, but we were quite like best friends, and I helped to raise a little boy, Micah, for that first kind of
he's not a
year
little
or
boy
so.
anymore.
I know, he's all grown up
Oh
now,
yeah.
But they've been in my life for a long time, and so I especially love the connection here with you, Harry, because I was a little bit emotional yesterday. It has been 3 years of being here, and when I left last, I left during the pandemic. I evacuated out of New Orleans because there was hurricanes, and I just saw a really nasty side to people, and everything felt really ungrounded for many of us, but it's been, and I think I carried that energy with me a lot for the last couple of years, and it's been a big shift to come here and see everyone just normal and happy, you know, and in their good lives. And I was, sitting talking to Twigman actually at this moment, looking at the lake, being a bit teary, and I was like, and then meeting Harry, it was like it was like the cherry on the cake. Sometimes I feel like my lives are a bit separate. I'm a worker, I'm a waitress, I'm doing this, and especially when I was here in Central Florida, I do a lot of waitressing and bartending and stuff, faded and Monse.
Yes.
And as much as I love it, it's still not the artist journey, and so it just felt nice to kind of tie it all together. That I've come for a family trip, but it's still just very naturally aligned with the artist journey.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been my pleasure entirely. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Cheerio, mate.
That's awesome.
Wee, book stuff.
The Havery Show has been brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
Glory to the name, his name, the name of Jesus.